Ever wondered if AI could inspire your best artwork? It just happened to me. When I saw this gorgeous AI-generated Snow Queen thumbnail, I decided to outdraw the machine. Let me show you how I turned this into my own masterpiece and how you can too. The best place to start is at the beginning. There's a really strong symmetry component in the vidIQ image that makes it striking when you see it. And so I did the same thing using Adobe Fresco's symmetry tool, and I worked a long time on these lips. They're perfectly symmetrical. She almost has a little bit of an overbite, and I was able to find that in the lines. And then I worked on the nose, which is always challenging for me, but I did finally get there. I turned off the symmetry tool when I moved on to the hair. She has really messy braids, and they're not even on both sides. I braid my own hair, so I understand how braids go together. So I was really enjoying drawing the braids and making them pretty messy. The shading I'm adding to this sketch is really very basic because the whole sketch gets turned off eventually when I do the painting on top of it. Notice the space between the top of the pupil and the upper lid. It creates an eye that's really focused. The AI image has a striking presence with the girl's intense gaze and focused eyes pulling you in, and I think I got that with my sketch. So I'm moving on to the trees in the background. The trees are an asymmetrical layout, although they are very evenly spaced, and so I had to be careful and think that through as I was sketching, and I think I also got that. In this video, I have the advantage of switching back and forth between the camera viewing me drawing and then a time-lapse recording of my drawing that Adobe Fresco provides. The time-lapse tool is fabulous for recording your work and your mistakes. I noticed when I looked back at this one that I started out with yellow tones to her skin, and I realized it wasn't working, and so I switched over to pink hues with a lot of white on top. The AI image pushed me towards making the shading and the highlights very subtle. Next, I moved on to the eyes. Once I had the basic outline for the eye, I added some reflections, and I didn't just add the reflections in one place. I added them in a couple places, and they were different on each eye. Art is a little bit like cooking. It's a lot easier if you clean up as you go. As you see me work on these eyes, you'll see that I do a lot of cleanup along the way. I kind of let things overlap and then I clean them up. It's actually not that different than when you're working on a piece of paper or on a canvas and you spill over. There are ways to isolate, but sometimes I just like to get in there and draw as if I'm on a piece of paper or a canvas. I worked for a long time on the eyes. There's 5 colors in the eyes, black, white, and 3 shades of blue. And I wanted all the lines to be clean and pretty perfect because I didn't want to have to go back. Once I add the lashes and the eyebrows, you know, it gets hard to go back. And so I added every single hair and made her eyebrows pretty perfect. The eyebrows are symmetrical, and so are the eyes from side to side. I use the symmetry tool. Overall, she looks pretty made up, but that's the way the AI was, and so I just went for it. I started with a wash of different tones for her hair underneath the white lines that you see me putting on now. And I added a lot of white lines, and they're not symmetrical from side to side. And then I went back in over the top of the white lines with 3 different tones of gray. And I just worked back and forth between the gray and the white until it looked like she had a lot of strands of hair. When I'm drawing hair, I like to move fast with the lines so that they're smooth and sweeping, and so the isolate tool comes in really handy. I can isolate an area. That's what the little dashed flickering lines are around the edge. It's keeping my sweeping lines in a neat space, and if I want them to go all over the page, I can, and I would turn that off. But when I don't want them to go all over the page, it's really nice to contain them. And I think her hair turned out pretty well. So here is the time lapse again, and it does show I isolated a little bit on the eyes, but not too much. And also in this time lapse, you can kind of notice that my tones and shading on the skin was really light and very subtle. We've already kind of gone over how I did the eyes and the eyebrows. Here's more on the nose. And something I've learned about noses is I used to want to make the tip of the nose really light because it's closest to you. But in actuality, if you add a little bit of color to the end of the nose, it gives it more mass. The lips I worked on for a long time. I had to go kind of back and forth on them. They got a little bit too big at one point. They got a little bit too red at one point. And then I had a lot of fun doing the freckles. I loved doing the freckles. And I must say, I personally have freckles. I had them when I was young. They went away when I was in my middle years. And now that I'm old, I've got freckles again. I used the Isolate tool again to create some shadow underneath her chin. And then I also used it to create that original wash that you saw underneath when I was working on the hair. And this is sort of showing the overall buildup of the hair and that wash before I started putting on the white lines. You know, it's really interesting to look back at these time lapse because you really see how much layering happens in a drawing and how much it changes from beginning to end. I would love to hear from you and know what tools you need help with. Just drop me a comment and I'll make a tutorial about it because I'm here to help you get better at your drawing. Next, I worked on the crown, which was really fun. My crown has a little bit more mass. It's a little less translucent than the AI crown, but I like my crown. My crown makes a lot more sense than the AI crown. If you look close at that crown, it doesn't really make sense what's happening, which is common with AI images. They go for a feel, but not really reality sometimes. And then I added a lot of details on the tunic. I lifted the chin a little bit. It was having a little trouble there. Some nice texturing from a Adobe Fresco brush on the tunic. And then I kind of quickly went through the trees in the background with the base color. I used the ruler tool to straighten out the edges of them and blended that in a bit. Then I used the Isolate tool where I added some highlights from the sun casting on the trees and then some snow over the top. And then I used some super cool brushes from the Adobe Fresco program to create that wintry background. I added that little bit of sparkle in her eye, which is a reflection of the light. And then I added the magic, those beautiful falling flakes all around her. I used the motion tool. I did several different types of snowflakes and I put some in front of her and some behind her. And I think that that is the special extra that I added to this illustration that the AI thumbnail doesn't have. It doesn't have motion. And so you get a whole different feel by watching this one. I have a short video about the motion tool that I will share here, but first, this is where I started and this is where I ended. What do you think? I hope this video inspires you to embrace the joy of drawing and keep pushing your skills to new heights. AI did it for me. It helped me push myself a little bit further. Remember, every stroke brings you closer to your own improvements, to your own masterpiece. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think, and I'd love to see what you're doing. Please share it with me. Thanks, everybody.